Hello and welcome to the Celtic Down Under Podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me are three of the four of us that were at the Sydney Super Cup last week. We've got Shane and Sean. How are you, Shane?
I'm good, thanks, mate. I'm still all abuzz, or buzzing, if you will, after experiencing watching Celtic for the first time. It's a cloud that I haven't come down from quite yet, and I'm not too sure how long it'll take either. So I'm good, mate. Really good.
And how are you, Sean?
Yeah, I had a hangover on Monday and Tuesday, and well, I don't know, maybe not a literal hangover, but I was certainly absolutely knackered and probably also literally hungover, and I'm still sunburnt on my scalp as well from sitting out in the sun. But yeah, this morning felt like the first time I was really fully recovered, and it's now Wednesday.
Fair enough, mate. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. For me, it was all right. No hangovers. Just got home, and I'm just like, can't wait for bed. And then the next day, I wake up. So was that yesterday, and I was just like, all day I was just singing in my head. Everywhere we go. I just had that chant in my head non-stop, pretty much since Sunday. Fun times. The joys of being a Celtic fan. So, what we'll do before we start, just anyone watching, have a if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button to the Celtic Down Under podcast, both on YouTube and on the podcast app you're listening to it in. We've got some merch going on now, so I'll share the site a bit later on. There's t-shirts, hoodies available on there. We've also got a bunch of the flags like the one behind Shane and myself, if you're watching on YouTube, that are for sale. So they'll be available on there as well, or you can send us a message on Twitter at Celtic Down. But yeah, just what we'll do, we're basically going to be talking about this whole pod will be there's how the Sydney Super Cup was, our stories from it, people we run into, all that sort of stuff. If you're tuning in, get involved in the comments section. Let us know, and what your thoughts and memories from the weekend are, and then we'll have a bit of a laugh at Rangers towards the end of the podcast. Sorry, Sevco, got to get that right just for Sean, and we'll go from there. So, Shane, you were the first one of us to arrive in the Sydney out of the three of us on here. So me and Sean both got in on the weekend. So do you want to give us a rundown of when you got into Sydney and the events and that you went to and everything up until Saturday?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, if you'll permit me to indulge for a bit. So, for those who are aware, this is the first time I've ever gone up to see Celtic play live. So, it was a really exciting moment, and something I've been looking forward to for a long time. So, a group of us went up. So, a few of you may know Vinny from the comments on the YouTube channel. Vinny and I are good mates, and we're good Celtic fans, and we both went up with our partners as well, and we went up on the Wednesday. Before I forget, I do want to give a big shout out to my lovely partner Bridget, my good mate Vinny, and his lovely partner Lisa as well. Having you guys all along for the trip was just the best. So big shout out to you guys for coming up as well. I digress. To get back to where we're going, so we went up on the Wednesday in prep for Thursday night's game. And so we just sort of got a mid-afternoon flight laid up, chilled out mainly for Wednesday evening, didn't really get up to much. Thursday was more about getting involved with the fan experience. So that was about sort of getting out to the place to be, which was Scruffy Murphy's, and kicking back with the other Celtic fans who on the Thursday were sort of in and around the city in very good numbers. That led on to Thursday night's game. I won't get into the match details. I know we'll chat about that later, but just being part of the group of Celtic fans at the front there, everyone standing, everyone singing, it was just really wonderful. But for me, the best part of that particular day and the rest of the days was sharing stories with people. So meeting people. I've met countless people throughout the course of the week up there, shared stories, swapped love of Celtic stories, discussed, where the club's going to, futures, things like that. And there's countless people I chatted to. I'm sorry, I can't name you all because there were simply too many of you. But to everyone who reached out to me and chatted to me and took time to go through things with me, just a massive thank you so much. It really, when people say Celtic's a family, it's really true, and to kind of experience that firsthand was wonderful. I also did the fan event on the Friday, so that was with the Q&A. That had Scott McDonald there doing the Q&A. He looks sharp. He looks like he could literally like lace up tomorrow. I was surprised he didn't come on Sunday, to be honest. I'm surprised they didn't put him onto the team sheet. And it was basically, the fan event was the last thing we went to, and then it was sort of hanging around Scruffy Murphy's and just sort of dotting around the city, chatting to various Celtic people. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't want to repeat myself, but just a massive thank you to everyone who I chatted to and shared stories with. It was so much appreciated.
Yeah, just off the back of what Shane's saying, I think just we'll do some shout outs. Main one I want to shout out to is the guys at the Sydney City CSC and the staff at Scruffy Murphy's for putting on great home base for us all up there. It's unbelievable. And as Shane was saying, just bouncing around the pub, talking to people, hearing their stories, and it's just great to hear. And yeah, me and Sean get to Scruffy Murphy's on Saturday. We order in a pint, and what happened, Sean?
Oh, are you talking about Alex? Yeah. Old lad Alex Russell. What age did he say he was? 72, 73. I think he absolutely stacked it. Spilled his Guinness all over the place, just fell on the floor of the pub, which is only just opened, so there wasn't that many people in. But yeah, we picked him up and he was like completely out of it. And called him an ambulance, and he decided to just go for a walk on his own before. Yeah, ambulance takes forever in Australia, so he just walked away before that ambulance arrived. So who knows what happened to him after that? Hopefully he's fine. The barman was chasing him up the road and everything.
Yep. Off the back of that as well, we ordered the pints, that had happened, but we're standing there and I was like, Jared, is that you? Sean? Like, they picked the voices straight away. People listen to the podcast. So I got to give a shout out to there's those guys, but then there was also a bunch of others as well that we've seen over the weekend who come up about the podcast, and it's great to see. But the funny part was Alex, who went over, got given $100 for it, get a cab back to his hotel, and then he decided to walk home.
Yeah.
What a legend.
Yeah, people were like that to me. Oh, how did I know you? Did I know you from somewhere? I'm like, do you listen to podcasts? Aye. All right, okay.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, to be honest with you. It was good though. But yeah, just overall for us, just being there in the CSC, bunch of people going around handing out our pins. It's good fun. Chatting to them. Yeah, great venue. 3 different levels. We'll be back at some point. Tommy Boy in the comments got a comment here. What's at Scruffy Murphy's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'm dying. Still, what a weekend, guys! It was a pleasure. Yeah, can't wait to get back there as well, mate. But yeah, what we'll do is, Shane, we're going to talk about the Sydney FC game. So I've got the lineup somewhere on my phone. Just bear with me a second while I scroll through about 400 photos from Sunday. So starting lineup there was Siegrist in goal, Ralston, Welsh, Starfelt, Burnaby, Abelgard, Itaguchi and Turnbull in the midfield, Abada, Forrest with the captain's armband, and Kyogo up front. So overall, first I'll go to you, Sean, instead of you, Shane. I'll go, Sean, what was your thoughts when you saw that lineup?
Was surprised that Hart and Giacomakis were nowhere to be seen, but they obviously explained later it was some minor injuries. Jens and concussion protocol. Other than that, it was strongest team you could expect. It was good to see, well, apart from maybe the centre mid, we were getting to see Gucci and Abelgard getting the run out. I think if you're going to choose any game this season to test them out, then a friendly against Sydney FC is surely the one to do. And they didn't overly impress, to be honest. They looked like they knew what they were doing, but they certainly didn't look like they were ready to replace O'Reilly or Hatate or Turnbull even at a drop of a hat. So that was a little bit concerning. Welsh got absolutely smoked for pace on a couple of occasions, and Bernabe was badly out of position. And Siegrist was the player that impressed me the most in terms of playing above expectation. But apart from that, it was not much else of a surprise.
Yeah, just for me, I was looking at it and I was like, okay, it's good to see these guys, but the way Sydney FC played, it was pretty ugly in terms of we played their game, we didn't make them play our game. And with the guys we had, second half, we made those subs and we started to imprint ourselves more on the game and the style we wanted to for the first 15 minutes of the second half. And then they get that goal, and then all bets are off from there, which is pretty ugly. But yeah, I think Abelgard didn't really do much, so I'm a little disappointed there. Itaguchi, normally when I'm watching a game on TV, it's one where I can hear them and be like, you hear the commentators or you see a player everywhere, and I didn't see Gucci anywhere, and I didn't hear the commentators say his name very often. So to me, it was almost like we're a man down out there. But as you said, Sean, if it's going to happen in any game, do it in a friendly against Sydney. So, Shane, you were at the stadium. The floor is yours. Tell us all about it.
So I'll just preface the comments on the game in terms of the atmosphere. So, I think we discussed in previous podcasts what the sort of crowd expectations were. And, I think if we're talking factually, it probably would have been around 15,000 or so. The atmosphere that was being generated, though, by the Celtic fans, which I was sort of at the front of as well, was just fantastic from go to woe. Like, even after the final whistle, just exactly what we've come to expect: singing, fun. The result didn't matter, and that extends to the other game, which we'll chat about later. Really, the result didn't matter per se, but the actual atmosphere that the fans created was one that was really great to be part of and came through, and everybody there had a good time irrespective of the result. I only bumped into one person who was disappointed following the game. Everyone else seemed to just take it in their stride. So shout out to the fans for doing an awesome job. That atmosphere was excellent. Getting on to the match itself, look, I echo a lot of Sean's comments, to be honest. It's funny he mentioned Welsh. I literally have in my notes Welsh running in quicksand. He got burned a couple of times. I thought we were pretty it wasn't a good game in the first half. I thought it was pretty kind of sluggish. Sydney really did set up to kind of play on the counter, and we didn't really do much to draw them out, really. I don't think we played at the tempo that we used to, but I also didn't think we had any kind of control or presence in midfield either. I don't think the sort of combination of Itaguchi and Abelgard worked at all well. I think both of them were pretty peripheral in the first half, and I wasn't surprised when Ange made some changes. I actually thought, to be honest, over the first half in particular, but probably over the course of the game, I thought Tony Ralston was probably one of our better players, if not our best on the park. I thought he was excellent. For Sydney, look, may not have played well, but they set up well, and they had a couple of players in particular I thought had good games. I thought Howard Bell for them, which is their keeper. I think in any other A-League team, he's probably a starting keeper, and I thought he was excellent. He made a couple of pretty big saves, particularly late on as well. I also thought for them, Joe Lolly looked like he was going to take the game away from us at various stages, just when he would get on the counter, and Bernabe really didn't have any sort of touch or feel for him in terms of his positioning. He looked like he could take the game away from us, and he was the one who had that shot that I think from memory cannoned off the crossbar or took a touch. Yeah, he I thought was excellent throughout. So second half was much better when the subs came on. So in particular, the three of Jota, Hatate and Haksabanovic. And I felt for that first 20 minutes, we played the way we would normally expect. We were all over them. We were winning the ball high up the park. We were having repeat phases. And their first foray forward for that second half was in the 60th minute. Their first foray forward, their first attack for that whole second half was about 15 minutes in, and they scored from it. It was one of those things where you just throw your hands up and go, I can't believe it. Look, second half was much better, much more of what we'd expect in terms of the way we play and what we want to do, but just weren't able to create that sort of those gilt-edged chances. We had a couple, but overall, I felt that final ball into the box just wasn't there throughout the whole match, to be honest.
Something you said there, Shane, about that first chance they created in the second half, they scored in the 60th minute. They took their chance. We didn't.
Yep.
That's the story of our time in Sydney. So, there was something to say. But there was another guy that playing for Sydney. You mentioned Lolly before. The one that impressed me the most was Robert Mack, who used to play at Ferencvaros. I thought he knew the level. He played well. And that was probably the best I've seen him play this season as well in the Sydney top. So, yeah, interesting. But, Sean, you got anything you want to add?
Yeah, I thought Ryan Grant had a good game as well on the overlap. I don't know if that was just because Bernabe was letting him look good, but either way. We talked about over the last couple of days about Bosun Lawwell making a good audition to be putting up ahead of Stephen Welsh in the pecking order of our centre backs. And having seen him like not on the pitch in person, but like seeing him physically in person at the Accor Stadium, he is a beast. So he could well be the next man up, challenging to get in there soon.
Realistically, what we're talking about was, okay, with our centre-backs, you've got Carter Vickers, Starfelt and Jens. They're your top three so far. Then you're bringing in the next rung down is Welsh, Kobayashi. We're bringing in, we don't know where he's going to fit in the mix, and then Lawwell, however you say it. So you've got three as your top three, and then you've got your next lot down. Who's going to establish themselves as that four-string centre-back for us? Because there is a spot there. You need to have four quality guys there at least. And, yeah, Welsh has flooded to deceive quite a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting because it feels like he's almost been kept in the team now because he's one of the requirements for the Champions League European squads, to have homegrown players and stuff like that. He's not really stepped up. He's kind of static in terms of his development. So it's a concern.
I was saying to Shane and Vinny on the train back after Sunday's game that I think what Welsh needs is like an Aya sort of loan. Second half of the season, go out on loan into a club in Scotland and play week in, week out, whether that's to Killy or to Aberdeen or wherever. He needs to go and play week in, week out. And if we're going to promote Lawwell up and we're going to bring in Kobayashi, then we can do that. But, yeah, for me, I think he needs that because if he doesn't get that move and come back from it looking like he's ready to go, he's at the Owen O'Connell stage of his career with us where he's not going to progress any further.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you get a lot of benefits from experience, but he's never going to get faster. So there's that as well.
Yep. All right. So now, before we jump over to Sunday's game, let's have a bit of a chuckle. I think it's this button. I'm not sure. Yeah, Zombie Watch. The mob across town, that Mankey mob, the Sevkanites. Sacked Geo. Sean, your thoughts?
Bit of a surprise, really, and not just in terms of the absolute decision, but in terms of the way they did it. To wait, like, I don't know, what was it, a week and a half or whatever it was after their last game, 2 weeks almost, to then do it. I mean, I guess the players were on holiday anyway, so it's not like they were missing out in training, but they could have been. Yeah, it almost feels like they had someone lined up, and that's why they've done it now. I'm not sure. But I also feel...
Cough, cough, Michael Beale, cough, cough.
Yeah, apparently QPR are okay with that after their recent run of results. And yeah, it also feels worth pointing out that Sevco are only 3 points worse off than they were last year in the league. So really it's almost down to them trying to live up to the standards we've set and not being able to do so. So Postecoglou can claim that scalp, I think.
Happy days then. So that's his scene off too so far. Let's go for the hat trick this time next year. And Shane, what's your take on it all?
Yeah, I echo Sean's sentiments. Timing was a little bit surprising. I probably thought he had until the New Year Glasgow Derby, and then a poor result there probably would have sealed his fate. So I'm a little bit surprised they've moved now. I think Sean's comment about them probably having someone lined up is correct. It seems a little bit knee-jerky to make without having that kind of assurance. So it wouldn't be surprised if they make an announcement shortly. For those of an Australian persuasion who might be watching and tuning in, I'm pretty confident it won't be Kevin Muscat. So everyone who's sort of pushing that and saying it's a possibility, I don't see it happening. I just can't see them taking a punt on him at this stage.
Yeah, it's not going to be Muskie because let's be honest, Muskie's just signed a new contract with Marinos, so it's going to be a nice buyout there. On top of that, they were umming and ahhing about getting rid of Gio because of how much it was going to cost to pay out him and all his staff that they've sacked. Yet, if they came to the Sydney Super Cup like originally planned, they would have had the money to do all of that. So, suffering your jocks, Sevco. Good Australian term for you. There we go. But nah, for me, I look at it and go, yeah, it's odd timing. But I can understand why they're making the move now because, okay, the players are on a break for 10, 14 days, whatever. They'll come back next week. Whoever the new man is, get him in, get a good solid 3-week block of training before they jump into the, return mid-December. Then you get him, the new manager gets to see those players on the pitch for a couple of weeks, and then he can make whatever moves he needs to in January. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. And in the comments, RL77, everyone should treat themselves to a listen to Kevin Thompson on the BBC Sports Sound podcast, Heavy Staunch Madness. Listen to that or Super Scoreboard this week. It's some of the funniest stuff I've heard on a podcast in a long time.
Yeah, they're definitely going mental. I was absolutely bits. One of the memes I saw on Twitter of the Broxy's Christmas party one, it was like they'd put on the picture of like an existential angst teddy bear. It's just staring into the distance. I was buckled by it, honestly.
I have a question. Had Sevco put out their Christmas, video yet?
They're not. They're selling tickets for the Christmas party. I know that.
I was only asking
£30.
because, Gio being an elf on the shelf and everything in their Christmas ad and, still being in it, but getting sacked would be kind of awkward, wouldn't it? It'd be like buying a calendar and then the guy who you've got at the end of the year was sold in January in the summer break. It'd be like that.
Then there's probably some last minute editing and photoshopping going on.
Reason I brought up the calendars is my mum bought a Melbourne Storm Rugby League calendar years ago, right? Probably 4 or 5 years ago at least. And the guy who was in November, season ends in, September, first weekend of October. The guy who was on November left the club at the end of the season, so was no longer at the club when he was on the calendar. That's why that one popped into my head. It's brilliant.
I mean, that's always a risk for the second half of the year.
Exactly. So, the main event was on. So we recorded some stuff at the CSC, right, on the Saturday night. Sound quality was rubbish. There was that much background noise of music being played, people talking, people cheering. It was hard to use it. The only sound recording, I'm going to play it now, Sean, just for a laugh. The only thing that was usable was Sean doing a testing on the mic to make sure it worked. It's the only thing that sound was decent for. So this is all we got out of the recording from the weekend.
Our scandal.
Saying, our scandal. Happy days.
Can you tick that little E for explicit box now, Jared?
Yep, had to. So, going into the game against Everton, we were talking to people at CSC, and we had a bunch of, some of the recordings. There's people going, oh, yeah, we'll win 4-1. We'll win, it'll be 2-1. Cal McGregor's going to score. That was Shane's mate from down at Mornington. Was it Ryan?
Right. Shout out to Ryan. Yep.
Down at the Social Celts in Mornington. So we had a whole bunch of people on there. We had but on the Saturday night, we're at the CSC. So there was me, there was Sean, there was Shane, there was Bridget. We had Tony Haggerty from the Celtic Way. We met him there, and Willie, who's one of the admins on the Facebook group. He came over from where did he come from? Wellington, New Zealand. Came from there, from Hawke's Bay. So it was good to see you, Willie, and put a face to the name in person and everything. And hope you're feeling all right, because it looks like he's a bit crook from the trip, but you'll be right, mate. But it was good meeting you. So we had all them guys give their score predictions, a bunch of other people, and the sound was no good, so I couldn't use it. But the general consensus going into the game was if we went out there with a strong lineup and imposed our style of football, we were going to be much better than we were against Sydney. And overall, I think we did that in the game. We were just wasteful in front of goals. Yet again. It's like Celtic in Europe. So we had the starting lineup, Joe Hart in goals, Ralston, Jens Starfelt, and it was Taylor, wasn't it?
Yep.
That started? Yep. And then Hatade, O'Reilly. Was it Turnbull in the midfield as well?
Yep.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah,
I did
definitely.
right. And then we had Kyogo, Jota, and Haksabanovic up front. Couple of tricky wingers, get at them, and then Everton come out and play a 5-3-2, 3 centre backs, couple of wing backs, and park the bus and try to hit us on the counter. It was an entertaining game overall. Like, we had periods where we were on top. They had a couple of periods where they hit us on the counter and came close to scoring. Starfelt had a massive slip up, and Sean sitting next to me was like, full on losing his mind. It was great. But no, the best memory for me overall, other than being in the crowd, being in the stadium, seeing the crowd, having the huddle going on, and a bunch of the chants, and that was, we talk about us over here. This team is so likable. And you sit there and you watch them on TV. And Sean, you mentioned it when you went over to Scotland earlier in the season, that seeing them on the pitch and seeing the amount of running and that and the pressing and that they do off the ball. Now I get what you meant by that. I've seen it. And in that 28-degree heat that we had on Sunday, yeah, a lot of effort went into all of that. But a couple of minutes into it, and all of a sudden Jota's just like done some tricks and made Patterson look like a witch's hat. And I'm just like, hang on, they're in front of me. I knew I was in the stadium, but it was odd just to see it. So it's great to see the team playing. So thanks, Ange and the boys, for coming out here. But Sean, what was your take on the game overall?
Yeah, it's, as you say, it's when you're watching the game and the camera's focused on the ball, you don't see that Greg Taylor's already started his closing down run before the pass has even been played and stuff like that. You know, that sort of thing that's happening off camera. The game, the only 2 players that disappointed me were Starfelt and Haksabanovic. I thought apart from that, we played pretty well, other than failing to score. The sitters from Kyogo and Abada were all-timers, to be honest. I don't know how we didn't win that game at least 2-0. We looked a lot better when Forrest came on. I don't know if that's just Haksabanovic suffering from jet lag or whatever. We already discussed recently how knackered he's been, so that was probably why there was a rumour of him staying behind for Montenegro. But yeah, he looks like he could do with a rest, to be honest. So hopefully he gets a couple of weeks off now and gets absolutely firing in the second half of the season. Yeah, apart from that, it was good. It was entertaining. Everton should have been 1 or 2-0 up when they were through in goal, but to be honest, we dominated possession, and in the second half, we should have had those 2 chances from a couple of yards out, unobstructed, that should have been goals. And there was just, and apart from that, we did get a lot of possession in dangerous areas in and around the box, and just couldn't quite get that cutting edge.
Just on before Shane jumps in, I'm going to bring up a comment from Vanessa here, which was totally outplayed Everton, just couldn't score. I think that pretty much sums it up. So I think that's a a general theme because Tommy Boy in the comments is saying if Kyogo and GG don't start to score more goals, then I think we'll have a new upfront player because it's killed us this season with the Champions League. And yeah, it's the same over here. So that's pretty much it. And then Tony Cassidy's got a comment, hey lads, we need to sign more quality. I know Ange will be working on that in the thing. But what you were saying, Sean, about Haksabanovic needing a break, yeah, all the players get like 9 days off or something, and then they go for a camp in Portugal. And while we're there, we're going to be playing a game, I think it's against Rennes or something like that, one of the French teams. So I think that's a week before our first league game back against Aberdeen. So that'll be good. But Shane, you were sitting on the other side from us. So what was your take on the game from over there?
Well, to start with, in comparison to Thursday night's game, I thought the overall performance was much better, much more of what we'd expect, much more in line with how we would sort of usually imagine Celtic would play, in a sense that we dominated the ball. We got into, as Sean said, we were able to get the ball into a lot of dangerous areas. We looked threatening. We looked like we were creating. I thought we had the bulk. We created the bulk of the chances throughout the match, and yet, as Sean correctly put it, on the couple of times that Everton broke, particularly in the first half, they probably should have gone at least a goal or 2 goals to the good. Right? They had a couple of gilt-edged chances where they just, particularly the Molpe one where he had to chip Joe Hart. Like that was, I was surprised you didn't get that on target. But overall, I thought we were really good. I thought Jota was exceptional. I thought he was just, as you said, he was making Patterson look like a witch's hat. It was just, he was putting on a show, and he was getting into really dangerous areas, putting good balls into the box. That free kick that rolled off the crossbar, oh my God, that was so close. Look, I thought we played very well, and we played very well across the 90. I thought it was a pretty good performance, and I'd agree that when Forrest came on, I think he gave us a little bit of extra grunt, if you will. His work to win that ball back and put the ball across for Abada should have been scored. That should have been rewarded. That was a good effort, and it was disappointing Abada missed that. Same with Kyogo leaning back on the ball that came across to him in the second half. That, like, we in that second half, we had the gilt-edged chances. We should have actually scored and gone away. I thought for them, I thought, is it Begovic that was in goal?
Yeah.
I thought he had a great game. I thought he made a couple of good saves. I know people were sort of giving Kyogo a bit of a rough time on the first half one where he sort of, Hatate played him in. He nicked the ball behind the defender and took the shot. I give Begovic a bit more credit. I thought his positioning was really good, and I thought he knew exactly where Kyogo was going to go. And I thought he positioned himself perfectly for that instead of sort of second guessing. So I'll give Begovic a little bit of credit. Look, there were a couple of times where they broke in the second half. I think there was one where sort of Starfelt had come up, missed the ball. Jens was caught in no man's land. A couple of times where we just looked a bit kind of, I don't know, we just looked caught short when they went forward. But we're able to get out of it. There was one in particular where Starfelt nearly nicked it past Joe Hart. That was pretty remarkable. The other thing I wanted to comment on was just the pace that Everton possessed, particularly the back, well, even the back five, if you will, but mainly the back three. There was one part in the second half where I can't remember the Everton player, but he's nodded it back towards goal. Jota's got a break, and I can't remember the fella's name, the lad's name for Everton, but he starts behind Jota, but he very quickly works his way in front of him and wins the foul. And the fullback, the left back at one stage, Abada had a pretty decent gap, and the left back had by the time they reached the ball, had already beaten Abada to it. So I thought the pace that they possessed, they were quicker than us, particularly their defenders in comparison to our couple up front. So that was something I noted as well. But overall, a very pleasing performance. Tail of the tape is when we did have our chances, we just didn't take them. Unfortunately, they didn't either. So it kind of ended in a stalemate. Nobody counts for penalties, right?
Nah. What you were saying there, Shane, as well, something we discussed after it as well, was that, yeah, you were saying about their pace. And I said, what overall for me is when we had Ollie Burke signed for us, he just looked like an athlete trying to play football. These guys, they just are a lot bigger and more athletic than us across the pitch. So, yeah, it was it shows that there's a bit of a difference there. But you look at a guy like Greg Taylor, and then you look at the size of their left back, nothing against Taylor. He's just about 6 inches shorter than the guy. So in the 88th minute, you know, they may be in the same position, but that extra 6 inches of height there is going to make a big difference defending those last minute crosses coming in the box. So yeah, it's just little things like that I noticed as well. But at the same time, the way we play, our speed and our, I'll say, twitchiness in terms of how we can quickly change direction and get somewhere quicker than they could. The speed over the first 3 or 4 steps, we were faster, but the overall pace, if they had to go for a 5, 10, 15 meter run, they'd probably outrun us over that same burst. But each to their own. At the end of the day, Sean's sitting there, you know, with his toothpick trying to have a bit of a thinky. So what do you got to add, Sean?
Yeah, no, I was just remembering, trying to think who the best player was, and I remember on the day thinking it was probably Ralston, mainly for his kind of involvement in both ends, and I was just remembering that 90th minute sprint back to defend that he put in as well. But I also thought Hatate was really classy throughout the game as well, and O'Reilly. And I felt like Everton got away with a couple of bad tackles as well, which was a bit out of character for a friendly.
That one on Price where he went in on O'Reilly. Oh, that was terrible. That was the one on the edge of the box. I'm surprised he didn't get a booking for that. That was pretty bad.
Yeah.
All right. So what I'm going to do, if you're watching on YouTube, jump on the comments. Let us know in one sentence, what is your overall summary of the trip down here in the Super Cup? So perfect thing here is Vanessa's one. She said, unfortunately, this trip showed that Gucci isn't going to make it at Celtic. That's her takeaway from it. Let us know your takeaway. Hail, Mikko from Finland.
I was going to say, Rocco Vata has the best squad number. That's my takeaway.
Yep. My takeaway is people in the crowd holding up signs pre-game saying, Joe Hart, can I have your gloves? Or people doing that sort of thing with a scar, with signs asking for players' shirts. That is a scourge on football. Get rid.
Yeah, they did. I don't know if it was on the TV, Celtic TV coverage or not, but they did. Maybe 5 of the players did jump over the barrier at the end and de-glove and de-shirt themselves and give it to the fans. I don't know what the kind of logic behind how they give it out was, because Jota was kind of looks like he was looking for someone in particular. So I don't know if he had seen a different sign earlier and was looking for them. That would concern me if players were thinking about that during a game, like who am I giving my shirt to? Who am I giving my gloves to?
The funny thing is that video of Jota doing that in the background when he hands the shirt over, this flag right behind me was in the background. And I had a friend of mine go, hey, I didn't know you're at the game. I saw your flag.
Yeah. Is that the one where you went all the way up to the top tier to hang it? Yeah.
Just a little bit, yeah. That was some good exercise. And hail to Paul. Now, result happened, as Shane mentioned, penalties don't count. Game was over, went to a penalty shootout. Old mate, Giacomakis, no penalties for you anymore, buddy. No chance. I think he was aiming at the goals on the big screen because he missed by that much. Wasn't a nice effort. And, so lost the penalty shootout. Who cares? Best thing for me was Sydney was green and white overall. The stadium was rocking. Got to see Celtic play live for the first time over here since 2011. And I've got a video to share with you all, which I recorded just after the game. Will this be about 15, 20 minutes after, you reckon, Sean?
Well, we'd had time to go for a piss and things like that. So, yeah. It must
get the flag. Would have been that.
Yeah.
So this is the sort of thing we saw was happening around the inside the stadium on the way out. So here we go. Yeah, so as you can see, there was quite a bit going on in there. There was whole bunch of people having a nice little hangout and everything, having a bit of a chant and everything. It was great to see, great to be part of. The atmosphere was amazing overall. And yeah, come back soon, Celtic. We'll happily have you back. And the talk is they're going to be going to Japan soon, as Andrew was saying. He wants to go and keep doing this sort of thing. If they're in Japan soon, got my passport, flights will be booked. We'll be heading up there as well.
It'd be interesting to see what the actual number is in terms of the kind of cash value of this tour. I know from what I've heard, there's a lot of performance related kind of payouts. So based on the kind of attendance of like 50% at each game, I'd say we might not have hit that kind of performance one. But if there was any kind of benchmarks for selling pints, I'm sure we did surpass those. Or in the official merchandise stall outside the stadium was queued out as well. So might not have hit the full potential, but there was things like the change of kickoff time, so that everyone ended up with sunburn and sunstroke. That was great. Thanks to that, Sydney. Didn't even put any free sunscreen out. Top job. And somebody needs to have a think about that one. But yeah, I think there could have been something a bit better around the scheduling. But apart from that, the actual things that were all happening on the day and around the stadium were all great. Having the live music, the kind of extended beer drinking zones outside the pubs, the express trains from the city centre, even guys didn't like keep you up to the ball, all the food trucks that got shipped in. Yeah, a lot of it was done really, really well. My only complaint would be the time of day the game was at and the kind of day-to-day scheduling of the whole event. As in, they do it on a Sunday kind of thing.
I might just jump in there because just to paint the picture for everyone who hasn't been out to that stadium, when you get off the train, there's a couple of 100 meters between you and the stadium that you sort of walk along, so you can see the stadium directly in front of you. And as Sean said, there's sort of bars and things on either side that they'd set up. So when I got there, it was like a festival kind of atmosphere. You had the bars sort of, piled with people grabbing drinks, catching up, chatting, having a lot of fun. Even the eateries a bit further parallel to the station, sort of in line with it, were packed with people just catching up and getting ready for the day. You had people on rollerblades coming up and down the middle. I'm not sure what that was all about. You had a band playing. They were playing Pink Floyd at one stage. It had this kind of festival atmosphere vibe. There was a real chilled out, really enjoyable kind of, hey, this is going to be a really cool day. And you had the sun shining down. The only thing painful from weather perspective was the wind. The wind was just ridiculous. Like if I'd pulled the flag, like if we'd pulled the big flag out in the wind and I was holding it, I would have flown away. Like I would have gone over the stadium. It would have just taken me who knows where, possibly back to Central.
Then wouldn't exist anymore. You'd probably be in Queensland.
But it was a really interesting kind of vibe. It was a real kind of what I call a summery vibe. And I think there were a lot of things they did well. Definitely the sunscreen stuff and putting everybody in the sun due to the kickoff time change was a bad move. And it was disappointing they didn't cater for that. I'm not going to chat too much about it because I was in the shade. That was a bit frustrating. But apart from that, they did do a lot of things right.
The one thing with that stadium is, there's a lot of open spaces around. So if it was raining, you come off the train, you're going to get soaked before you get to the stadium. If you're in the stadium, there's not a lot of crowd cover in the lower deck. Shane, as you said, you were lucky you were in the shady side. I got sunburnt for the first time in God knows how long. Good fun, but totally worth it anyway. So, what we'll do is I think we pretty much touched on everything there was to go through with the Sydney Super Cup, discussed the games, discussed it all. We'll go a final thought, but the final thought I want from each of us, instead of it being our silly ones that we do, we can do that like right at the end as well. I want a final thought from Sydney for the three of us on if you were playing Football Manager or if you were the director of football right now at Celtic, what would your take be on the squad? Where would you be strengthening? What would be your main position and priority? based on what we saw at the Sydney Super Cup and what we've seen so far this season. Do you want some more thinking time, Sean, or you?
No, I could answer.
Yeah,
No,
you-
it would have been. I don't know about this Japanese lad and how that affects it, so I won't really factor that in too much. But it would have been certainly a better centre back, because I don't think Welsh or Starfelt are going to take us to the level we want to go to, and or Jens for that matter. But I think he's more of a kind of better, more someone I wouldn't mind so much as a backup. And then other than that, we could do with someone that can finish the ball. A striker like John. I don't want to say John Hartson, because he wouldn't do the kind of high press that we need, but like someone with that level of finishing ability and a bit more athleticism. We're never going to get Henrik Larsson, but there's surely got to be someone out there that we can take and fix the flaws of, or that's young enough that we can get them to develop into the player that they can be while they're at Celtic. Yeah, that's what I'd be targeting.
And Shane?
Yeah, look, I think this central defender call is definitely spot on. I think this set of games has probably highlighted that a little bit more. Probably the one that came up a little bit for me, particularly from Thursday night, is probably left back, to be honest. I'm a bit concerned about Bernabei, and not sure how well he's progressing in terms of whether he's going to not even challenge Taylor for a spot, but even be a reliable backup. You think of the kind of the situation we had last season with Juranovic and Ralston, right? Juranovic first picked, Ralston a very reliable backup that you can throw in any time. Look, maybe it's a bit harsh, but watching him against Sydney, I thought he was just his positioning was poor. All of Sydney's attacks were coming down that side. I just felt like he was caught out a lot, and it wouldn't be the first time I've sort of noticed it from him, but this time noticing it up close, it seemed to be a bit more pertinent. So probably left back, to be honest.
For me, I'm just going to push aside the centre-back situation because we haven't had a stable centre-back pairing all season. So I'm going to give the guys the benefit of the doubt at the moment to get it right this season. But going into Champions League next year, the priority for me is we need a settled centre-back pairing. We need someone alongside Carter Vickers if he hangs around to take us to the next level. But that I know we'll get there. The key thing for me is if we went into January and we could sign this certain player I'm about to show to the camera on a pre-contract and bring him home, that's our European striker that we're missing. It would work in the end system. Bring Musa home.
That rumor. I heard that rumor. I don't know where it came from.
I don't know where it came from either, but I'm like, bring Musa home. He's out of contract at the end of the season. Make it happen. He's 26 years old. He's still young enough. He's the same age as Kyogo. Get in. Bring him home.
But surely we're competing with the EPL on that one, since he's and I mean mainly because he's one of the players who would count as homegrown for any English team in the European squad.
Yeah. All right. So I said at the start I'd bring it up. So anyone looking for Celtic Down Under merch, it's eventually going to, Sean's hiding behind it. We're going to be, eventually it'll go back to our proper Celtic Down Under website. I've just got to get that fixed. So CelticDownUnder.square.site. You can get hoodies, you can get t-shirts on there. And if you want flags, you can just contact us at Celtic Down on Twitter. And I'll do that just to stop Sean. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hail. And we'll talk to you next week.
Hail. Our scandal.